last week Canadian Tire had a really good sale on hoverboards. Now, hoverboard is like imagine a skateboard, turn it sideways and add a motor to it. So it's a little bit like those Segway scooters that you see, but without the handle. So you stand on the thing, and when you lean forward, you go forward. When you lean back, you slow down or go in reverse, depending on how far you lean. So I picked one up thinking that, Noah's going to have a great time with it. So I put it away for a few days and waited for an afternoon when he was bored and needed a little bit of excitement, and also when it wasn't raining. And so that came a couple of days ago. We had that afternoon, so I pulled it out and said, "Here you go. I got you a present." So we took it outside, and as with many 11-year-olds, he hopped on the thing, and it's as if he was born to ride it. Right within just a few minutes, really, he's scooting up and down the street and doing these little spins on the spot and everything, and he's having a great time. So after having a few minutes of play, he turned to me and he said, "Dad, do you want to give this a try?" So of course I said, "Well, yeah," because I'm not going to be shown up by my son. So I hop on the board, and when you're 11, you take to these things naturally. When you're a 48-year-old man, it's not quite the same thing. So I found that as I would lean forward, the thing would start going, but it would accelerate actually quite quickly. And so my natural inclination when it starts accelerating is to lean back and ease off, right? But what ends up happening by not being fully committed to the ride, by trying to sort of do it and slow it down, do it and slow it down, you end up with this kind of death wobble, right? Where I'm going, stopping, going, stopping, going, stopping. And of course, there's no way to really stay on the board like that, right? I mean, it's like riding a bucking bronco. So what I quickly learned is that you cannot ride this board halfway. There's no half measure. You have to fully lean in and just commit yourself and go, because otherwise, I become my own worst enemy by trying to be cautious. And I found the trick, really, the secret to riding this board is don't look at your feet, don't look at the board, but actually look far ahead. Look as far ahead as you can to where you're going. So much like driving, really, the farther ahead that you look, the more smooth your driving tends to be. And it occurred to me as I was, struggling with this thing, that it really is a metaphor for life, right? There's so much of life that is like that. Either you're all in, or you're just causing your own problems. Our relationships are certainly like that, right? So with our primary relationships, we make a promise with our spouse, and we say, we're in this together until one of us is dead. And that's an intimidating promise to make, but at the same time, it's completely necessary, because without the security of knowing that we're not going to run away, we can't be completely honest with one another, right? So knowing if we think that our partner is going to leave, we have to try and pretend to be better than we are, right? And there's long-term implications of trying to live your life like that. But when we're fully committed, that we know that we can reveal some of those more vulnerable parts. And as we reveal them, we can actually help each other grow through them, right? So we actually become stronger and better by committing and opening up. And our relationship with God is really no different, that either we're all in or we're sabotaging our own relationship. And in our relationship with God, we tend to describe it in terms of faith. And with faith, often what we mean when we say faith is we're talking about what we think. Our belief is something that we assent to and something that we think about. But when Jesus speaks about faith, he's not really talking about what we think. He uses the word in the New Testament, pistuo, which is more about trust, really, than about what you're thinking. And I find that that's actually quite a good word, because when we believe in God, often we believe in God when times are good. But when things take a turn for the worse, we want to hop off that hoverboard, so to speak. We want to stand on our own 2 feet. We want to take care of things ourselves and fix things ourselves, and then we'll come back to God. But what this reveals is a certain lack of trust, really, that God could see us at our worst and still be with us. We often exhibit this behavior when we're not feeling well, actually, with each other. Back in the 90s, I spent a summer in the hospital, and I didn't like people coming to visit me. I didn't like people coming to see me because I didn't want them to see me all weak and underweight and dependent. And I think most of us are like that, right? So when we need help and support from others the most, that's the very time that we shut them out, right? We say, no, 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 come back later when everything is good. And we do the same thing with God. So when we're struck down by life, at those times that we need God the most, that also tends to be the times in which we want to try and fix our own problems. But what we find, though, is that if we have the courage to lean in and to be fully committed to this relationship and open and vulnerable, we'll find that God is indeed our strength and our refuge in times of crisis, in times of trouble. And much like being on the board, we fix our eyes higher to carry us through all those little bumps in between here and there. It's the same thing, that we fix our eyes on God above to carry us through the bumps in our life. There's a really good metaphor for this with Peter and Jesus. So the episode in which Peter is walking on the water. So he sees Jesus walking on the water and says, oh, I really want to do that too. So he said, Jesus, call me out, right? Call me out of the boat and I'll come to you. So Jesus did call him, and lo and behold, there's Peter walking on the water. It's a miracle. It's amazing. And he's doing really well as long as he keeps his eyes up and keeps his eyes on Jesus. But as soon as he turns his eyes down and he starts looking at the waves and looking at the wind and looking at the froth and the foam of the storm, that's when he starts to sink. So I guess the lesson for us is as long as we're fully committed and keep our eyes on God, that sustains us. And that's the trust that we need, right? But when we're in those storms and trials of life, as soon as we take our eyes off of our focus and start looking at the trials and tribulations around us, they'll actually consume us. They will drown us. So life, in essence, is just a practice of learning how to lean in, how to commit, and how to keep our eyes on that ideal, keep our eyes on God on the horizon.